Hello everyone, welcome back to Shortcode. In this Python Advanced tutorial, we will be going over closures. By the end of this video, you will know what closures are and the benefits that they bring you and how to use them. Before we jump into it, if you are new here, my name is Caleb Shaw and I make great programming tutorials every day. So if you are new here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future tutorials. Let's get right into it. So a closure is a function object that remembers values in enclosing scopes even if they are not in memory. Basically, they allow us to take advantage of first-class functions. If you haven't seen that video where I explain what first-class functions are, be sure to check it out so you know what is going on. So first, let's take a look at an example that I'm just going to copy and paste in. So we have this variable called myfunc, and it is set to execute outerfunc, and it has a parameter of 3. So it executes outerfunc, and when we run that, it goes up here to outerfunc, and creates a variable called mynum, which is set equal to the num parameter, which is 3. So mynum equals 3. Then we have this inner function that prints out mynum, so it'll print out 3. And then we return this inner function, but notice how we don't have parentheses on the end. Now what this means is that we're returning the actual inner function object rather than the result of it. So we're actually returning the physical function object, and we aren't executing it. Okay, so everything that is indented underneath the outerfunc, so all of this is in the enclosed scope, and this mynum, printing mynum here, it wasn't created in the inner function, but the inner function has access to it, and this is what we call a free variable. So when we return innerfunc, that means that myfunc is equal to innerfunc because it has been returned. And we can then treat the myfunc variable as a function. Let's try and call the innerfunc directly. So if we just comment these out, let's call innerfunc directly. So if we save it and run it, we get an error. Name innerfunc is not defined, we get a name error. But now, if we execute myfunc, we can see we get 3. And that is because we are running the innerfunc. Now, this is interesting, because when we run the innerfunc directly, we get a name error, but when we run it through myfunc, when we treat it as a first-class function, we can run it. We can call a function outside of the current scope. This is what's known as a closure. It is our function object that remembers values in the enclosing scopes, so this value, it's remembered this value, even though this variable is no longer available in memory because the outer function has finished executing. So to create a closure, you must have a nested function, which is this function right here, and then this nested function must reference values in the enclosing scope. So this nested function must reference variables in this scope right here, which it is doing. It's referencing this mynum, and the enclosing function, which is this function, must return the nested object, which is this. As you can see, it's returning innerfunc. So we have a closure, and we would use the closure because it helps us avoid using global variables. And when we have accessed variables in the enclosed function scope, after the enclosed function has finished executing, we have accessed variables in the enclosed function scope, so we have accessed it right here, after it's finished executing. So without closures, we would have to use a global variable to access them. So for example, we might have to have mynum would probably have to be out here. We shouldn't be using global variables because things can get really quite confusing, and functions should be able to work by themselves without any global variables. So that's pretty much it for closures. In the next video, we will be learning about args and kwargs. Then we will be looking at decorators. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I always reply to any comments I get. If you would like to support me, be sure to give this video a like. It really does help me out. If you are new around here, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on future Python tutorials. Otherwise, that's it from me. Cheers and goodbye.